After the rogue nerfs, the meta's really opened up now. We're seeing a lot of different decks that are seeing play. And one deck that I've really landed on as being my favorite, at least for right now, is Fell Demon Hunter. I'm Uncorrupt. I'm going to be breaking down the deck for you card by card, letting you know how to play this deck and what you want to be thinking about while you're playing it. First thing that I always like to talk about when I'm explaining a deck, talking about a deck, is the win conditions that are in the deck. What's the general game plan of the deck, and how are you supposed to win games with it? So with this deck, there's actually two win conditions. Those two win conditions are Jace Darkweaver, replaying all of our Fell spells and allowing us to get just a big attack out of our hero. And then, of course, we have the Fellfire Deadeye Expendable Performers, quote-unquote combo, not a true combo, just a two-card little deal here. In conjunction with already playing Kurtrus, allows us to refresh our hero power for free, and that again is going to allow us just a big hero attack to be able to finish our opponent. Typically when a deck has more than one win condition, in my mind, I think about a primary win condition and a secondary win condition, because usually there's going to be one that's more common than the other in most decks. Not really the case here with Fell Demon Hunter. Both win conditions are going to be equally common. You just kind of play the cards that are in your hand and appropriate for the situation. Taking a look at the deck here, we're just going to start here at the top. Fellscream Blast, just a small area damage, multi-target damage on minions to be able to clear the board. Also provides us with a little bit of healing. Comboed with Talented Arcanist, of course, if we can hit 3 minions with it, that's going to heal us for 9. That's a pretty solid heal. And in a lot of cases, with aggro decks being more prevalent, that heal could actually even clear 3 minions off the board as well. Fellscream Blast, just a nice little addition to the deck. And of course, it's a Fell spell that's going to get replayed with Jace. Fury, another Fell spell. Of course, this card gets stronger as the game goes by. 3 attack at 5 mana, and actually 4 attack at 10 mana. Again, Fell spell, it's going to get replayed with the Jace here. One important thing to keep in mind with the Fury gets replayed at the same attack that you played it originally. So if you play Fury on turn 3, when you replay it with Jace, you're only going to get the 2 attack because it was played on turn 3. If you play it at 3 attack, Jace will give it to you for 3 attack, and of course, if you play it at 4 attack, Jace gives it to you at 4 attack. It's important to keep that in mind because you want to be able to figure out exactly how much damage Jace is going to be able to give your hero attack when you play him. Could be the difference between lethal and actually just like scrubbing out of the game. Illidari Studies, just kind of a good universal card. It's in almost every Demon Hunter deck. Discover an outcast card or potentially reduce an outcast card already in your hand. It's just nice to be able to find answers for a board or to discount something like, say, Skull of Gul'dan. Bloodmage Thalnos in the deck. Just another source of spell damage along with Talented Arcanist. Gives you a little bit more juice for things like Fellscream Blast, Fell Barrage, so on and so forth. And then it's also going to allow us to be able to cycle a card. Pretty decent inclusion in the deck. Chaos Strike, draw a card, give your hero 2 attack. Again, attacking is good. And it cycles a card. Pretty straightforward there. Fell Barrage, one of the key anti-aggro cards in the deck. Deal 2 damage to the lowest health enemy twice. Sometimes you can clear like 1 4-health minion with it. Sometimes you could clear 2 tokens, say 2 1/1s. It'll also hit the hero if there are no minions on the board, or it will hit the hero if the opposing hero, is the lowest health character on the other side of the board. So, for example, let's say your opponent has a Abomination, and it's a 3/5, and it's just sitting there as a 3/5. If the Druid hero on the other side of the board only has 4 health, then Fell Barrage would hit them for 2 twice, and you could actually potentially find lethal with it. Also keep in mind, it can be combined with the spell power here, so with Thalnos it's going to hit for 3 twice, with Talented Arcanist it will hit for 4 twice. Kind of one of the sneaky plays that you can use with Fell Barrage would be like Talented Arcanist, and Fell Barrage actually targeting the other hero. No minions on the board. That means this will actually hit for 8 damage on the opposing hero. Pretty strong. Just keep in mind that when Fell Barrage is replayed with Jace, and also Fellscream Blast, even if they were played with spell damage originally, that spell damage is not going to apply to the recast from Jace. Fellfire Deadeye, part of our kind of Kurtrus Expendable Performers combo, just gives you a free hero power. Sometimes you're going to throw this out, it's just going to be a minion on the board, potentially if you're fighting in an aggro matchup. Key use for the card in the deck, though, is just along with expendable performers, and if you're already in Kurtrus Demon Render form, just to be able to refresh your hero power for free and be able to attack your opponent for a big hit as necessary. Immolation Aura, again, just an anti-aggro tool. We have some spell damage we can use to buff this card and allow us to clear boards. It's really, really strong, potentially against aggro decks like Hunter, like Shadow Priest, like Beast Druid. Just a solid card there. Talented Arcanist, I believe we already touched on. Aldrachi Warblades, it's just a solid weapon. Lifesteal, and of course we can buff up our hero attack. You can get some really big heals out of an Aldrachi Warblades, so it's a key card for, just a defensive tool and being able to heal our hero. Also, not a whole lot of Rustrot Vipers in the meta right now, so you're not really going to see your weapon broken all that much. Chaos Leech, another Fel spell, mainly used for clearing and healing. Of course, Outcast deal 5, that's a pretty significant heal, and it'll let you remove a medium-sized minion. Also, that's going to get replayed with Jace. Felgorger, draw a Fel spell, reduce its cost by 2. Again, put a 4/3 on the board, draw a Fel spell. Many of the Fel spells in our deck actually cost 2 or less, so we get those for free. And in fact, the only Fel spell that costs more than 2 is Chaos Leech. Get Chaos Leech, you're going to have it for 1 mana. All the other stuff will be free and could actually play it in the same turn. Potentially, you could go Felgorger and hit like a Fel Barrage. You get the 4/3 and play a Fel Barrage and possibly clear 2 small minions on your opponent's side of the board. So just a nice little solid card here, key card in the deck itself. Magtheridon included in this version. Magtheridon has the potential to be really strong. You play it in order to clear the 3 1/3s that appear on the other side of the board. Could just be like Immolation or a Fel Scream Blast, or it could even be Talented Arcanist Fel Scream Blast. Being able to heal for 9 and clear your opponent's side of the board and put a 12/12 in play is really, really strong. Sometimes this card will just close out aggro matchups because they can't deal with the 12/12. And then just having the ability to clear the board can be good against things potentially like a Libram Paladin that has really big minions on the board. Could be good against, say, Ramp Druid that has really big minions on the board. This is likely the deck's only answer to something like a big Ibis. So Magtheridon, been performing pretty well, definitely an inclusion in the deck here. Kurtrus Demon Render, the hero, of course, very strong. It's going to summon 2 demons, and they are going to increase in attack the more your hero power has attacked throughout the game. So a lot of times you're playing these things and you're getting 2 5/4s with Rush, 2 6/4s with Rush. I think my personal record, I've had him as big as 11/4 before I played Kurtrus himself. And then, of course, the upgraded hero power, of course, giving you 2 attack for 1 mana and refreshing every time a minion attacks, allows you just to give you a little bit more juice from your hero as far as being able to do damage and maybe even clear some minions depending on what's going on. Definitely a very strong card. Skull of Gul'dan, this is actually just card draw. I think you're probably pretty familiar with this card. We want to play it in Outcast, if at all possible, to be able to get the discount. But sometimes if our opponent has just a really weak turn and they don't have a board, I'll actually just play the Skull of Gul'dan and draw 3 cards that are going to be full cost. Depends on the situation, but it is a viable play if the situation allows for it. One thing to keep in mind here, Skull of Gul'dan, you're never really going to be able to outcast it from the right side of your hand, simply because we're not able to play cards quickly enough to be able to clear the cards out of the way necessary to play it from the right. So Skull of Gul'dan, if you play it in Outcast, it's always going to be from the left side of your hand unless you top deck it. Expendable Performers, again, part of the combo that we talked about with Felfire Deadeye, Kurtrus Demon Render. Summon 7 1/1 Illidari with Rush, and if they all die, summon another 7. So if you think about the combo, you have to put the Deadeye on the board, in which case it only summons 6. If those 6 die, you summon another 6, and of course you can refresh your hero power after every one of these 1/1s attacks, and that allows you to get a really big hit out of your hero. So I know a lot of people don't like math. How I calculate how much damage I'm going to be able to swing for with that combo is I add up the health on my opponent's side of the board on all the minions put together, and then multiply that by 2. And that's how much you're going to get out of the Deadeye Expendable Performer combo. So if your opponent has 6 health worth of minions on the board, you know that you're going to be able to attack 6 times, multiply that by 2, that's going to be 12 damage. Just don't forget to count your initial hero power before you ever attack the first time. So in the example that I just listed, you would actually be able to get 14 damage from your hero swing on that turn. Of course, if your opponent has a Divine Shield, that's 1 extra attack, so you would just add another 2. Anytime you're going to use that combo, you want to make sure you know how much damage you're going to get. Sometimes you just play it because it's enough damage that you set up lethal for the following turn. Sometimes, you might actually miss lethal because you just don't have enough attacks out of your expendable performers. You won't get enough hero powers. And in some situations, it could actually cost you the game. Just make sure you know what you're going to get when you play that combo. And then, of course, we come last but not least, Jace Darkweaver. He's going to replay every Fel spell that we've played in the game. If you're going to play this card at any point, you want to make sure that you know what cards you've already played, so you're going to know kind of what you get back or what's going to be replayed, and how much damage that's going to give your hero. So you're going to have to remember how much your Fury was used for, because that's going to make a difference in the amount of damage you get. You're also going to draw a card for every Chaos Strike. Be careful if, there could be hand size issues. You could potentially overdraw, lose a card. It may not matter. Losing a card is not the end of the world. You just want to make sure you know what's going to happen. Also keeping in mind, Jace is sometimes just an emergency card. Hey, I'm low health. My opponent has a board. I'm going to jam Jace, and I'm going to heal because I've already played, Fellscream Blast, Chaos Leech. It's going to have an Immolation Aura in it. So on and so forth. So potentially, you clear your opponent's board and you get a heal kind of as like an emergency oh no button where you can jam this card. Just keep in mind, depending on how many Fel spells you've played and what they are, I find a lot of times when I play Jace that Jace actually dies. So you don't play this card expecting to have a 7/5 on the board next turn if you've played things like Immolation Aura and Chaos Leech. Chaos Leech will target Jace Darkweaver if he's the only minion on the board. So definitely make sure that you're careful there. You don't want to play this expecting to have the 7/5 and then kind of be surprised by that. So that's the breakdown of the deck here. As far as matchups go, this is just a really strong anti-aggro deck. It's going to be good against things like Shadow Priest. It's going to be good against Hunter. It's going to be good against aggro Druid. It has winnable matchups against both Warlock and Shaman. Really, the one matchup that you cannot win, in my experience, is Ramp Druid. It's a terrible matchup. Basically, you just expect to lose. I haven't played against it, but I would assume that Control Warrior is probably the same. They gain so much health, you just have a hard time doing enough damage to be able to finish them off. Going into the mulligan, I want to talk about Druid specifically as a matchup. When you mulligan against Druid, my suggestion would be to mulligan for aggro, even if you reasonably expect your opponent is playing Ramp. Ramp Druid is the most prevalent thing that I see on the ladder. The issue with that is the matchup is so bad, even if you hit the perfect mulligan, it's still like an 80-20 matchup. You're going to lose to the Ramp Druid. And so if you mulligan for Ramp Druid, and we're throwing away our anti-aggro tools, when we actually hit an aggro Druid, we might lose because we don't have the tools we need to be able to beat aggro. So the way I look at it is, Druid, I mulligan for my anti-aggro tools. If it's a Ramp Druid, I was going to lose that match anyway. But if it's an aggro Druid, I want to make sure that I have the cards so that I'm not throwing away games that I would otherwise be favored in. Anything you suspect that's going to be aggro, which, as I just mentioned, is always going to be Druid, just one man's opinion, Shadow Priest, and Hunter, we're going to be looking for things like Fel Barrage. Against Hunter specifically, I'll keep a Fellscream Blast. It's good to clear their 1 health minions. Against Hunter, we just want to make sure that they don't have any board to be able to land their buffs on. Doggy Biscuit and Ramming Mount can create some big minions, do a lot of damage face. We don't want to give them that opportunity. Chaos Strike is actually going to be a keep in every matchup, not just aggro, but every matchup. It's just good to give you a little bit of attack and to be able to draw a card. And then, of course, specifically against aggro, Immolation Aura is going to be good. In slower moving matchups, you might potentially keep Magtheridon even. Sometimes just getting the early 12-12. If you can play him on 4 and then awaken him on 5, sometimes that 12-12 can just win you these slower moving matchups. And sometimes you just need it to be able to clear big minions. Thinking like a Quest Warlock that has a couple of Flesh Giants on the board, the only way that you're realistically going to be able to deal with that is probably going to be getting down the Magtheridon and finding a clear that way. One more note about Magtheridon, just make sure that your opponent has room on their board to be able to summon all 3 1/3s. If they don't, then you're not going to be able to awaken Magtheridon. Also be careful against Rogue with Magtheridon. If they Shadow Step one of the 1/3s, then you're never going to be able to awaken him, so just be careful there. Also against slower moving decks, you could keep Kurtrus, and you could also keep Skull of Gul'dan. If you're going to keep Skull in your opening hand, just be careful. You don't want to end up with Skull of Gul'dan that is locked out of Outcast position by expendable performers. This was something that happened to me. I full mulliganed actually against an aggro hunter. I had expendable performers on the left, Skull of Gul'dan in the middle, and expendable performers on the right. And I ended up losing that game. Again, we're very favored against aggro, but just the fact that the Skull of Gul'dan was locked and then I had cards that I couldn't play ended up causing me problems. That's going to happen from time to time, but just be careful with that Skull of Gul'dan. That's the breakdown of the deck. That's the matchups. That is the mulligan. If you want to see some gameplay on this deck, please check out my other video explaining the plays Fell Demon Hunter. I play some games with the deck, explain exactly what's going through my mind and why I'm doing what I'm doing while playing that game. Thank you for watching. Good luck out on the ladder.